Fred Dashevsky from U.S. Coin Capital. Good morning, sir. Welcome back. It's been a while since we've had a chance to talk.
Yes, good morning. Great to be back with you again. I hope everything is going well in the Pacific Northwest.
Things are going good up here, and hopefully where you are as well. But the reason, of course, we've got you on is talking about money and what is really the state of money and finances and coins and really everything across the nation, as U.S. Coin Capital covers a lot of these topics on a regular basis.
We do.
Yeah. For those that haven't had a chance to hear from you before on KXRO, tell us a little bit about yourself and U.S. Coin Capital.
Sure. Well, I've been at this industry of gold and silver, United States coins, for over 38 years, and U.S. Coin Capital focuses on providing physical delivery to American investors of actual American gold and silver coins minted by the United States government back when we were, I will say, smart enough to have a nation that understood you shouldn't have fiat money. In other words, money printed with paper that's backed by nothing. Originally, we founded the country with the concept of a gold standard against the U.S. dollar, and we maintained that until the 1930s, from the 1790s, and sustained a silver standard against the U.S. dollar as late as 1964. We continued to mint coins. By 1971, Richard Nixon, when he was president, got to the understanding that the federal government was spending so much additional money it didn't have. It couldn't keep supplies of gold and silver to back the dollar anymore, and it removed that standard. Since then, we've been floating what's referred to as fiat currency. And the result of that is that that value in that money is changing over time as we create more and more dollars.
And, of course, the topic has been very much lately. I mean, what is the value of the dollar? Of course, with trillions of dollars going to this infrastructure plan, which for the regular person, I mean, it's just make-believe money at that point. And then with the rise in crypto and some of these other things that are, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So, I mean, with everything going on in the nation, really, what is the dollar doing? What is the worth of the dollar as it sits now? I mean, beyond a dollar, of course.
Right. It's a great question. There is this thing they refer to as the money illusion, and that is the idea that people focus on the number of dollars they see in an account. So you have a checking or savings account in your bank, and people will focus on the number of dollars that they see in that account. I think the focus should be shifted to the value or buying power. In other words, what do you actually get when you spend money? And how does that compare relatively to, let's say, 5 years ago or 10 years ago? And this is effectively what the inflation value is really trying to represent. It's supposed to give people a fundamental grasp on how quickly that paper dollar value, the purchasing power that you and I get as we spend money, is changing. The rate of inflation in America now is actually the fastest it's accelerated, the largest rate of inflation that we've seen since around 1990. And it's accelerating dramatically because as we hit this pandemic economic environment, we have a central bank in the United States that creates money for the U.S. Treasury that chose to solve this problem by printing its way out of it. So they simply created trillions upon trillions of dollars and pumped it into the economy, with the thought being that if we could drive capital into the open markets and make money cheap and available to the general public, you and I would borrow more money and spend it and buy goods and services, and that would hopefully stimulate this economic growth. And there's been some success in that, but it does come at a tremendous cost to the average investor.
When we're looking back at the pandemic, it really highlighted a lot of funding things. I mean, of course, now there's hesitation to get back in the workforce for a lot of people due to salaries and just the disposable income that really is available, and people kind of reevaluating what their value is. When we're looking at this, we were talking about kind of the value of a dollar. It seems like it holds a lot more power now than it used to. When people are looking at their savings accounts and checking accounts, I think it's safe to say that the pandemic has shown that a lot of people across the nation, I mean, especially in the rural areas, they're not having savings accounts or these massive portfolios or things like that, that it's just a foreign concept to them. And so they've really started to refocus on that and start building now based on the needs that they have.
Absolutely. And, unfortunately, we have a government that deficit spends money and they rely on the public to make up that gap. So as the government continues to spend money it doesn't have, it reaches out to you and I and says, well, you're a source of revenue, and I can gain more traction and get more capital reserve back into my account as a government by raising your taxes. Or there is that secret hidden tax, which is what inflation is. So I can strip the value of your money without you noticing by simply printing more capital paper-wise and pumping it into the economy, and therefore changing the nature of the value of your money. And a lot of people have caught on to what is the end result of inflation, printing money. The end result of that is higher prices, and that's where consumers begin to notice. So you're right in the sense that, when we talk about trillions of dollars in a budget, or when the Federal Reserve has $4.5 trillion worth of assets on a balance sheet, or it's going to have $9 trillion on its balance sheet by the end of the year, these are numbers that they're just so bizarre. It's hard to even get a grasp on what they mean. But people recognize that they're going to the supermarket, they're going to the gas station, and things are costing them more. And they scratch their heads and say, well, what is changing? And my problem with this is that it's that paper dollar that has been changed in value. The other things that we're purchasing, that gallon of milk, that 1 pound turkey, they're the same as they were a year ago. But it takes more of these weaker paper dollars to continually buy these same goods and services. This is why I've been such a big proponent for people to diversify their wealth and include that physical gold and silver coinage as a part of what they put away, especially if they're thinking, let's say, 5 years from now or 10 years from now, how will they sustain value in money they currently own if they don't do some sort of wealth protection? I think it's essential that people own some tangible assets.
And that's what I was just about to say, and kind of go into that. We're looking at the inflation on the national level, and of course you get the price of milk equation normally, but a lot of people are seeing this inflation go up, but then cost of living go up, but not a lot of salaries go up, because they do have this, like you said, fiat money they've just got money, but it doesn't increase along with the cost of living and inflation. You're talking about diversifying. What is the importance of kind of diversifying a portfolio with gold and silver coins? How does that help someone? And I guess, what is the time frame of something where that would actually help them?
Sure. Well, if you look at it this way, let's say 100% of everything you've ever saved or earned is still sitting in a form of paper money one way or the other. And that would mean, like savings accounts, CDs, checking accounts, even stocks. You're basically saying that everything that you have worked for is in this one form of money that is being changed without your knowledge, permission, or ability to focus any kind of way of preventing that problem from being an issue for you. The concept of diversifying is to say, if we understand that paper money's value will change over time, why would you store all of your wealth in that form? If you diversify your assets into multiple asset classes, and gold and silver have been around for 6,500 years for very good reason. They're stable, they grow in value against a weaker dollar. So, for example, in 1971, when Nixon said we can't sustain a gold or silver standard anymore, an ounce of gold could have been purchased for 35 paper dollars. Today, that same ounce of gold would cost you 1,860 of those paper dollars, yet it's exactly the same ounce of gold. So the benefit of diversifying is that it allows you to counterbalance the inevitable loss in the purchasing power of that paper, since I don't see any end in sight in the government continually deficit spending. And of course, we have to remember we're already a nation that's over $31 trillion in debt. That's money that we've spent, that we owe in the form of treasury bonds that we have to pay interest on. And we're paying interest on that debt at such a high level now that, believe it or not, is the second biggest item in the entire United States government's budget. After the Department of Defense, interest on the federal debt is now the second largest problem that the federal government faces.
We talk about the changes in the price of gold and silver. Of course, again, I mean, looking back at this last year, a lot of people have seen these changes coming in. Of course, the fluctuations of mortgage rates, crypto, NFTs, and then notable, but at a lesser kind of fluctuation the last few years, gold and silver, they've seen these prices go up, go down, go up, go down. And I feel that someone who is not familiar with this process, it is a scary thing to jump in just because of the uncertainty of that market. So if someone were to want to get into buying silver or gold, I would imagine the best time to get into it is yesterday or today and now. But how does someone jump into that? I mean, is it something, are they just able to just go to their jeweler and just buy gold? Or how does this process work? Do they have gold?
Yeah.
How does it work?
The gold jeweler is not the place to go, of course, unless you're buying jewelry, naturally. For gold and silver as an investor, you want to come to a professional gold and silver dealer, like our company, for example, U.S. Coin Capital. We've been doing this again for 38 years as an industry. We have looked into the way that this will benefit people and how to do it properly. And believe it or not, it's as simple as merely accumulating a little bit over time of some physical old silver coins or gold coins. Like, for example, there are old dimes, quarters, and half dollars, minted as late as 1964. You can buy silver quarters for under $7 a coin and accumulate them thousands at a time, several hundred at a time, and begin to build yourself a little stash pile. And what you want to look at is, how does the relative value of that improve over time? Think about it in terms that in 1964, the last time that silver quarter was made, it had the value to purchase a gallon of gas. And today, that silver quarter worth about, $7 or so would buy
about a gallon of gas. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, a gallon and a half, maybe more, depending on where you are. I was in New York recently, and I know, prices for gas there were about $4.70. Here in South Carolina, it's about $3.80, and I know it varies across the country. But in other words, the purchasing power has held up. Whereas that paper dollar that you spent in 1964, 1974, 1984, it's progressively getting weaker. And the problem today is the rate at which this dollar, the paper dollar, is losing value is rapidly accelerating, because there's been a dramatic increase in the amount of money we've printed. And every time we have another economic problem, the response has been print more money, print more money, print more money. That's really dangerous for the average American.
When we're looking at buying physical gold or silver, is this just something that they get it and they just put it on a shelf next to like old family photo? I mean, how does this, throw it in a safe, or how does it work? And kind of a side note, but also kind of related, I mean, if you're buying gold, is there better gold and better silver, or is gold gold and silver is silver?
Well, I look at it this way. Any physical form of gold and silver that one would purchase has got to be better than a paper dollar. Since I'm convinced that a paper dollar is going to continually erode, the only question becomes how fast. Will it lose 3%, 8%, 10%? How much every year of its buying power will be gone? So the best form of gold and silver to buy are the physical gold or silver coins minted by the U.S. government, because of two things. Number one, they are fixed in supply, meaning they can never make another one. Whatever we minted as currency for the United States in gold, again, ended in 1933. We haven't minted a gold coin for currency since then. So with that fixed supply, there is growth in the value, not only as the price of gold itself increases, but also as that scarcity part of its value continues to become problematic, demand against supply, the values can continue to grow in that respect as well. And the same thing with silver coins.
Is it something that, I mean, you're talking about the old coins, but it is something like if somebody were to acquire their second grandpa's old teeth or something, does that have the same gold value as gold that was minted and stamped?
Well, in a sense, there's still value in it because, of course, anything made of a physical asset has the value of what it is comprised of. But it's a lot easier to conduct commerce and trade as an investor with something a little bit more recognizable. I mean, if you gave me your grandfather's, gold teeth, I'm going to have to, of course, have that melted and all the impurities taken out and deal with the cost and expense of that. And we don't know what purity of gold was used to do that in the first place. With standard gold coins minted by the United States government, we have very specific numbers. We know exactly what they were made of. We know how many of these things were produced. We roughly know how many of them have survived over the decades. So, and we have a fluid market that already exists where every day billions upon billions of transactions occur and dollars are traded for these kinds of gold and silver coins. So there's already an existing market for them that makes it much more fluid. And I think the storage of it is something also that, you have to look at it like you would cash. These are valuable things that you would put away, most likely in a safety deposit box or some sort of fireproof safe to protect them for sure.
That was the other question. If somebody does have some of these old coins, what is it that they can do with them? I mean, is that something you can't just go in realistically with some with a vintage coin or something and put it in a slot machine or throw it in a buy your gas or something. A lot of places just don't take that. I mean, it is legal tender, but what do you do with it?
Right. You need to convert it back into the spendable form of currency in the world at the time, which right now are these paper dollars that we're all spending. So just like a stock, if you had shares of Tesla or shares of General Motors, you wouldn't take the stock certificates down to the supermarket and expect to be able to buy a bag of food. You're going to sell those stocks for whatever value they currently have, get the money in the form of currency that you'd be able to spend, and then take that down to your spendable point. Same thing with your gold and silver coins. In other words, you want to look at this as a storage way of storing value over time. When you need it, you convert it into the spendable currency. And as time marches on, you'll get more of these dollars back than you spent to buy these things originally as the values continue to go up and that paper dollar gets weaker. So you have more buying power in the end to use. But yes, you would have to first, of course, convert it back into something more useful. I do talk to a lot of people, Kyle, that are, I call them collapsitarians. There are people that are really terrified that at some point they're going to wake up one day and no one's going to accept a U.S. paper dollar anymore. They really believe that the dollar will be worth zero, and they'll have to try to conduct commerce with old silver dimes and quarters. Again, I've been doing this for 38 years. I've looked at this very carefully. I recognize the huge problem with the way that we print paper money that's unbacked and the massive deficits, but I still do not believe we will ever have a zero value to the paper U.S. dollar. There's demand for U.S. dollars all over the world because as uncertain as our economy may be, believe it or not, we're still far better than most other countries around the world. So I think people will still be converting their gold and silver coins bought in today's world into U.S. dollars at some point in the future, and then using those dollars to buy the goods and services that they want to acquire. But I think that people need to recognize that they need this sort of protection. You just, unfortunately, since we're off the gold or silver standard, we can't count on the dollar retaining its value and purchasing power anymore, especially if the government's going to keep printing more and more money every time it runs out of capital. And it's just exacerbating to watch a government that cannot control its spending habits to the point where it's put the country in over $31 trillion worth of debt. It's absolute insanity to believe that we can sustain the value in paper money that's unbacked, if we're going to be printing trillions upon trillions of dollars. So anybody that has old gold and silver coins, I buy them as a regular thing as well. Our phone number at 800-878-2646. We're buyers every day of any American gold and silver coins, and we do, again, physically provide these to our client base and anybody interested in diversifying their wealth.
That was the last question I was going to ask you. If someone is listening right now and is unfamiliar with that process, and maybe they don't have a financial advisor that they can talk to, how can they reach out to U.S. Coin Capital and get this process started and get into diversifying their portfolio with gold and silver?
Well, the first thing, again, our phone number at 800-878-2646. I believe in education. I believe that people need to understand the rationale, why to do this, how to do it properly. And again, you brought up a couple of great questions we could probably talk about for, 15 to 20 minutes on their own, the various forms of gold and silver to buy and why some are more beneficial than others. Our website at U.S. Coin Capital, and the word capital spelled like the building, so it's U.S. Coin Capital, CAPITOL, uscoincapital.com. We're trying to provide information to help educate people. That is the goal of what we're looking to do. So if anybody has questions about how this works, would like to simply have a conversation, about how to do this, why, and how to go about it properly, please feel free to reach out to us either through the website or the phone number. We have a well-educated staff here that will walk you through the process. And whenever you're ready, if you are, we again will be happy to physically provide the asset directly to you as well.
You can find out more, again, at the website, uscoincapital.com. But Fred Dashevsky with US Coin Capital, thanks again for joining us.
Oh, always a pleasure. And again, always great to speak to people around the country. I again hope that people will start to try to research a little bit into the concept of what really is valuable when it comes to money. And keep in mind that the Constitution provided us with gold and silver as the legal tender form of money for this country. That was not an accident. It was done on purpose to prevent exactly what we're experiencing in today's world.
Thanks again, Fred.